Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Happy Tuesday. It's November 3rd, Election Day. So, yeah, I did an early thing on the 24th, but Brian's out voting now. So,
I went early this morning.
and then we went 2 weeks ago, right?
Whatever that was.
It was that really nice warm Thursday, so I think it was the 22nd or something.
Union Station?
Yes, look at the Union Station.
That was
That's where I
right.
went. Yes.
That's where I thought I was going to go, but Arrowhead was great.
Not bad.
It was. And it's a great place to start talking about values and ideals.
Okay.
Could we have known when this started forming that the election would fall on the day we switched to values and ideals?
No, I don't think that would have been, we could have foreseen that. No.
It's one of the things I like just about
I don't know. You guys have foresee a lot. So.
Well, it's getting out of your own way, first of all. Getting out of the ego's way and allowing some things to unfold. That's what I like.
Okay.
It's a great attitude for today.
Yes, I do feel that way. Even with, I want people to vote, but it's not the controlling piece in terms of discussion as much. I don't really know how to put it because I value the history of how I got the right to vote. So part of voting for me is an ancestral, it's an honoring, it's you don't get to say anything unless you pay. The only way you can win the game is if you play, kind of a thing.
I get that. But knowing your own values
Yes.
is what's really important here. And with our raw material, that's what we're doing, is figuring out what our stuff is so that we can know our own reactions, know our own ground to stand, and then hold space for other people whose values are completely different.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the, if I have any lingering respect for Jehovah's Witnesses, is that they do not vote. And I don't think they vote.
They don't?
They don't vote. They didn't vote. I know nothing's changed there. At least I don't think it has.
What's the reason for that?
Because the system, you render unto Caesar what's Caesar's. So you pay taxes and you do all of that. But your beliefs are not to be legislated. Your value is in your honoring God, honoring Jehovah, honoring. That's who leads you. The nation, that's why they could get persecuted by Hitler, because they could not pay homage to Hitler. So,
But Hitler allowed them to be his personal servants because he knew they wouldn't kill him.
yes. So there's no legislating. Yes, you could. This they do not want gay marriage. They don't want a number of things, but it's not being legislated.
Let's just go back to voting.
Yes.
Let's just stick to voting for this. That's a lot. That's a lot to unpack. But just in terms of voting, so God decides who is the president, and you just go along with it because it's God's will. So
Because you're in the world, but not of the world.
Not of the world.
So you accept, because God is stronger than the president, so you accept that his will support and take care of you, not a government. But that doesn't mean you don't pay taxes. That doesn't mean you don't be a good citizen. It's just that you're a good citizen up to the point where it doesn't interfere with your belief. That's why I was a kissing cousin of, I think, a cult. And if it wasn't for my mother not fully engaging as much later on, and then my father never was one, I still got birthday and Christmas gifts. I would just have to find other ways or when to give gifts to other people.
So your values and how they formed around the witnesses
Yes.
became very ego for you, even though they set it up as an ideal.
Yes, because it was an ideal.
You used it to your advantage. You saw it as an ideal. It didn't line up with your true value system.
No, it did not. So my values were skewed from other people's in that sense. Because I could see everybody else collectively enjoying their birthdays.
way you were strategizing around, everybody felt very, people have said to me they felt very sorry for my children and myself because we didn't celebrate holidays, but you maneuvered around all that. And, I mean, you really did. And what happened for me is that I have and I'm very grateful for this, for Jehovah's Witnesses this way, I have no connection to holidays at all. And especially when I took up being gay, when people don't want you to do this and people don't want you to do that, it was really clear because I wasn't in it anyway. So when they have, we got to have Christmas dinner, and if we don't do this and if we don't do that, you feel, people have suicide on those days. I have none of that emotional response around holidays, particularly Christmas. I like the little bells, I can sing the little songs, but I have no connection to it, and I'm grateful for that. I really am.
Okay.
And I think that demonstrates why it's so important to know your own raw material around these sorts of things. So values and ideals, some people truly value Christmas.
And they do.
Some people, Christianity isn't their thing, and they're not going to get anywhere near that part of Christmas.
I mean, I knew it was not connected to anything holy.
Right.
So I could do it. I mean, I remember making a turkey on Thanksgiving.
Well, and
because they were on, and people say, you're not, the witness would say, you bought a turkey. I said they were on sale.
So your value was saving money.
Yes, if I had a value, it was saving money.
It didn't matter about the holiday. You just saw it as an expediency that kind of a win in Rome. If turkeys are on sale, it's the meaning people were attaching to the turkey, not the turkey in of itself. No, I get, because the ideal is you have all this, the sweet potato pie, the whatever on Thanksgiving. I like the idea of Thanksgiving. I don't like the origins of it, but the being grateful for. I mean, I think that's the value.
Thanksgiving, it's giving thanks.
And it's in the beginning of Sagittarius, which is about giving and about the generosity of spirit.
Well, if you want to have any of them, Thanksgiving is the best. That Easter thing with the eggs.
That's your value.
Is absolutely ridiculous.
You mean the Easter egg and all?
The Easter egg and all that.
Well, let's not parse out the holidays.
No.
Okay, all right.
Because I think we can agree holidays are unique to whatever your material is.
And how the game I play with myself about holidays is I split it up and say holy days. Days that are sacred to you for whatever reason. And I guess we can now say holy as in wholeness.
I think we're going to have to switch it to wholeness. Because
Wholeness.
I think people hold holidays not as holy.
Wholeness,
so,
yes.
Sacred in ego is also a thing.
Keep
it
talking.
Just depends on a value system.
Yes. Okay, I got you.
So this doesn't have to be rooted in God even.
No.
It can be rooted in Christmas presents, But the thing is, that's why it's important to know your own values. And to know that we come in being shown ideals. You are shown through your teachers, through books, through your parents, what an ideal looks like. This is what I want you to do. This is at the end of the day what I want. I want you to have straight A's. I want you to, whatever the pinnacle is, that's the ideal. And as we were talking about earlier, the ideal moves. It's kind of always unattainable.
Yes, and
by design.
And when you talk about we were talking about the king and if the king actually served the people and everyone served everyone, then all will be taken care of. Because to rule, this is the I Chingism, to rule is to serve. So and through serving, if serving is your value, serving is a value.
Value lined up to an ideal.
To an ideal. The ideal is that everyone should have a basic income or something. If we made that an ideal.
How about an ideal that everyone has enough water or food?
Clean water and food.
But so
Clean
that's
water
an ideal.
and healthy food. Yes.
We don't have that.
No. And
No, we don't.
and we have to figure out our values to do that. Because I was reading about something as simple as animals are still more protected than black people. There's certain ways you dispose of dead bodies. Certain ways we protect animals and cruelty with animals that we still don't have that same kind of heartfelt protection of marginalized and disenfranchised people, that we put the emotions, the value of our animals. Look at just even with Mike Vick and all that dog, the dog fightings. He was castigated for that. But we look at a world of the George Floyds or the Tamar Rices or the Breonna Taylors, and the pushback is people value the not. So you say Black Lives Matter, and then we create Blue Lives Matter. And the ideal is all lives matter?
I think the ideal depends on perspective.
Okay.
For me, the ideal is Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
I don't know that we needed to take extra turns on that. This is my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know that we need to take extra turns on that when that's the first time in my lifetime, and in, I think, all lifetimes, really, where we had a big part of the population paying attention.
Yes.
Being able to attach value.
And so what is it about the ideals of our culture that miss the mark so much? Because to me, sometimes when we talk about ideals, I get caught up in frozen picture frames, that this ideal has been frozen in a point in time and space, and somehow, no matter what my values are, the ideal can be so far from, in my mind, from being able to be attained, that there's an apathy that I think can occur. And does occur.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you don't have a clear understanding of your own values and whether they line up to the ideals that are important to you, then it's really hard to keep a clear focus on the things that you want, because you'll get derailed by things like your feelings getting hurt and coming up against somebody who thinks differently or disregards or,
I
dumps on what you're...
I just hope that we're at a time where our ideals can shift to a point that it's expected that we work toward clean water, healthy food, more evenly shared resources. Because this 2 steps forward, 3 steps backwards, it's getting old. It has gotten old. Do you have anything to say on it?
Well, I just see those values that you put in the picture frame, they just get, they don't move. Sometimes you have to move them. It's like the group of people put values on, like the animals, for example.
Mm-hmm.
There's more values put on taking care of the animals than you are taking care of people. And you see that.
Or more value placed on plastic surgery and designer clothing and shoes and vacations than people eating or having clean water.
Right.
We as human beings make choices regularly based on our values.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't have clear understanding of our values, we don't understand our choices. And we might be making choices that don't line up with our values because in the moment we want what we want and our ego's driving the bus. So if you have a sense of what your values are, you can ask yourself with every choice, does this line up with my values? And does it lead me to an ideal, or does it take away from an ideal?
And this is why we need the time, the inward contemplation time, so you can get to know yourself better, to know what feels good within the physical, mental body, because this is mental week. So it's about our minds analyzing and having communication with our soul. And I see our soul as kind of the observer witness to all of whether our values are lining up to our ideals or not. Mm-hmm. And if not, why not? And how can the ideal change if it no longer feels good within the body?
Right. And I think
okay.
what you're looking at and wanting to affect mm-hmm. in your, if I can step into Black Lives Matter space for a minute, because I'm in this, but what the ideal would be is something that's very far off the mark from where a lot of our people exist. So the expectation that all eyes would be on that ideal is just, even though it seems like it's taken so long, it's still early.
In terms of the actual progress.
In terms of evolution.
Of evolution.
Of truly lining up that value with the ideal. Because ideals for so many people right now have to do with ego attainments. Have to do with them hitting certain places in their lives, and that peripheral vision doesn't include anyone that isn't in their lane, and it doesn't, their animal, their dog is in their lane. Mm-hmm. So if they have the means to take care of themselves at a certain ego level, their dog's going to get taken care of at that ego level too, unless they've got addiction or shame issues, in which case they come home and hit the dog or the kid or the wife and make up for their shame that way.
Yeah, no, I get that, and that's why I talk about that there's an internal shift, that there has to be a shift from the external, which is the ego driven out here, to the internal, where you start to question what is my value respectively to other people's value, and to, how can I say it? It's like it's almost as if there has to be obstacles outside, whether that's COVID, whether that's being able to have to stay at home. There has to be some kind of struggle or block to get certain people to even think about others.
So to take that concept
Yes.
a little bit, mm-hmm. If you look at the collective group of everybody, mm-hmm. And if you're signing on to try our raw material, what you're signing up for is every single person is valid and equal. I don't care who you are. So equal value across the board. What you then find is at certain times, different people have needs that are greater in the moment than someone else's need. And that is all a matter of perspective. So you can only see what you can see and what needs are around you, and make decisions based on how to attend to what's needed. I can do the same, you can do the same, everybody's out there doing that. If we have some common thought going, then we're covering bases better on collective values and ideals. But without a plan, we are each egoing our own way through this.
So how do people get to acknowledge that there's more? How do we get people to acknowledge to have more value than just their ego? That's just what's in their lane. What is that? Is that where we get to the listening before we get to the values and beliefs, that we have to really hear another individual?
Well, what I hear you wanting mm-hmm. is for people to hurry up and get it.
Well, yeah.
That's what I hear, and I don't know that we have a plan to truly get them there. Now, if we can get them here to start thinking in this way, then they start questioning these things for themselves. They start building their own material. They have something to stand in, and say, oh, this is me in wholeness. And now, since I know myself, I can look around and see who else I can help. It's the equivalent of put your own mask on first and then you can help other people. I mean, get yourself
in alignment.
In a daily practice of water, breath, and alignment. In a weekly focus of a subject that if you get enough people focused on it, we're going to take care of these things. So I don't know how you get everybody to catch up at
I had a question about this ego.
Yes. Oh.
It's always, it's put in language as it's negative. You have to watch it because it will drive. But
Yes.
let me say this. In a culture that hates you, which is what, if you look at American culture, that's pretty much black people at the bottom or whatever. If I did not have an ego, if I did not say, oh no, my value system, again, going back to the witnesses, I was outside to begin with. And then witnesses pushed me out further. And then being gay pushed me out further. If I didn't fight for my place, however I did that, and say, I'm going to go get that, whatever that is, even though they say it's impossible, I would be nowhere. So I understand what you're saying about an ego, but it's got to be doing something.
Well, the ego.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, no,
Ego's really important.
It's integrated. It's integrated into the soul. No pun intended.
I would even say there's two. We're balancing the soul on one level.
Okay.
We're balancing the ego and the soul within the soul. And we're balancing the ego and the soul within the ego. So you've got to get both of those lined up and aware that they're both operating inside.
And if I've implied that the ego is inherently bad or evil,
we do talk about it like that.
Well, that's what I hear. I mean,
Okay.
if I'm just sitting back here and
We do talk about it like that.
Right, but it's got to be a driver because
It's a balance.
Okay.
It's a balance. So when we're saying ego, what we really mean is ego heavy.
and another analogy might be if the ego is a horse, the soul is the driver of the horse.
I'm
You
gonna even
Because
say.
she wants balance.
Well, I mean, we're looking for balance because I think once we can find a balance with our ego and a balance with our soul and recognize that those two things actually line up together, that's when our body starts to do some different things. That's when our body becomes capable of bringing in different information. So it's really figuring out, I kind of lean to the left when I need a little more soul energy, and I lean to the right when I need a little more ego energy, and I've been just doing that because
Oh, you're actually in your energetic body. Okay,
I've
got
had
it.
some family stuff lately, and my reactions are very ego heavy reactions. But once I think about it, my soul balances it out, right? So as I'm sitting there, I'm just like, okay, I recognize I'm a little ego. This is my, the way things hit me, mine. This is how it hits me. This is what I want. And then I go to the greater good. So I step over in my ego, and then I go, no, I need to lean over here a little more. And then I pull in a little soul energy, and then, if I'm over-giving, if I'm being...
I know, I get that.
There's two scales we're balancing.
Because there is this aspect, like, I didn't want to Swiffer the kitchen today, right? But you were like, let's get this done. And I thought, well, yeah, this can get done before Tavish gets here, right? Then there was another ego soul thing of just, I'm like that with the telephone. If I answer the phone, it's a soul thing. I don't answer the phone because I think I should answer the phone, or return text messages because I think I should. I do it because I want to, and so it's more of a giving place. Does that make sense to you?
I get it. I'm still on the ego. I mean, I hear the balance, and I think that that's wonderful, but it seems, for me, right now, today, I've had so much slammed in my face in this life, in my mind. that if I didn't say, no, you are not going to do this to me, in some way. Some way. It doesn't have to be verbal, it doesn't have to be whatever, but I could get out of the way of your fists, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
I had to think about, I didn't care what happened to the person who had the fist. I needed to know that I needed to get through. That's what.
Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, but I want you to talk through that.
No, I think this is where it's important for you to understand where we are. I mean, for the last 80 years, that's exactly how it's been. This year, 2020, we've had a shift in energy where there's more soul available. There's more
That's
soul
what they
awareness.
said, right.
So this stuff that we're talking about and this work showing up in the last couple of years, it's for this time. You couldn't have applied this when you were 20 years old and expected it to go anywhere but just you and your own, what you could touch.
Calculating cat.
You would have been
Baba
cut.
Tunde, you're all right.
Well, that's what I mean. So when I hear that, I go like, well, okay, but it's.
No, this is.
But you're right. There is something
for
happening.
now.
Shift. There's a
Yes.
shift. It really
Yeah, and that's the modern. Because I'm thinking about these Generation Z people born after 1997, 98. And it's not a question of, they know that they're being hoodwinked when people use the word socialism in order to describe common good and sharing from the government, whether that's healthcare, whether that's student loan debt, whatever. So they have a different perception that, say, their grandparents, who are maybe boomers, think about it. And so there is a shift in terms of, because they have so much information about the debilitated earth, or that they know we have to make different choices. So their values and ideals are shifted, not just because they're younger, but I think it's because they've been flooded with the doomsday scenarios.
And I think that's why it's so important to recognize these differences and understand them for yourself, so that when you're talking, you can stand and say, no, this is what I believe, and this is why I believe it. And you can listen to somebody else explain why they believe what they do, and it's valued because you're strong enough to take in their words. So, this work is building people who are ready to stand strong in themselves and stand strong in wholeness in ways that we haven't ever been able to. There's just an opportunity right now to hold that space and to hold that ground with your values and your ideals lined up.
I agree.
Where, other people are going to flail all around that. They're going to miss the mark. They're going to say horrible things. They're going to do horrible things with intention or without intention. But we are in a place now where soulfully, on the soul scale, we can, sidestep that stuff. Because we know who we are and we know what we're here for. And the
And
things.
you see that shift coming from where? Just because.
I have felt that shift in my body from the very beginning. You can point it out astrologically. You can make you can go study all sorts of masters who will point that out.
Yeah, they do. They talk about it that way.
It's everywhere.
Well, they talk about
But
it.
that's where we are. And so that's why this work's important right now. And that's why it shows up the way it does, is to create a common language so that we can create some ideals that a lot of people can get behind, or at least understand why someone else's ideals are so far off from ours, and then really create value systems that serve us.
It works for me. I mean, because I don't presume that all my clients and I have the same values.
How
And
would
so
you?
I don't, but I do know that one of the things about this work that I've seen in terms of your transformation has been clients that are asking different questions, and that I'm seeing 10-year-olds or 12-year-olds, or that they want to hear what it is that's going on.
Yeah, these
at
kids
12,
are coming
14, 16, and I'm just like, okay, and it's beautiful. I mean, it's inspiring.
These kids are coming in with value systems that are more closely lined up with ideals spiritually. They're coming in with understanding of differences in ways that we didn't, because the ego was still building as we were coming up. The ego is breaking down now. So if you didn't live through the 80s, you've got a much better shot of lining up your values and your ideals. You don't have your ego in the way, needing things for you, needing to
or seeing the things that you need for you, not disconnected from what other people need. So you're seeing what I need, but I can also see what you need, which is very different than only seeing what I need.
Well, and
That's
deciding
the 80s.
then I
That
need
was the
more,
80s.
and then I need more, and then I need more, and it doesn't really matter, 20 for me, half for you, maybe none for you, because I didn't even look at you.
Yes, that's very different. And the
it's-
shift after the 80s, yes.
Yeah, so that's really where that's coming from. So there are several things you have to adopt in this system, and that is, being willing to step from the ego space to the soul space, back and forth, and recognize which one you're actually operating out of in any moment, and it's going to change all day long. But if you can see where you are, then it's easier to make sure that you made a choice that you're happy with, that lined up with values, or if you're angry and operating out of ego, even if you're a very soulful person, you're going to have a reaction that you're not excited about. And then you might feel some shame, and then you might hurt your knee, or, who knows what. But it's going to play out in the body. And the more that we clear this body, the more that we do our daily practice of water, breath, and alignment, and our weekly focus of clearing our head around what makes us unique, and then being able to listen to what makes somebody else unique, now we have understanding.
Well, just let me drop everything and take care of that for you.
Will you please?
This is
Yeah, I get it.
contemplative.
Yes, it is.
Contemplative, yes it is.
It is.
And that's why 12 weeks isn't going to be enough one time. It's kind of like you just keep doing it. You just keep understanding it in yourself.
I just love the interplay of light and dark, that ability to understand the darkness is not inherently evil, bad, or anything. It's like saying an inhalation is not as good as an exhalation. No, you need them both.
And an exhalation is actually, in a lot of ways, a whole lot more important, and the piece that we don't do.
Yes, we don't pay attention to that. So the values and beliefs, I've gone through different chapters, different shifts, and there is more volume of soul energy to be tapped at this time.
We're in this body, of course there is.
Yes. So